Lucas, I want a divorce, and I've withdrawn all the money from our joint account. Good luck out there. The message came at 3:12 a.m. Abu Dhabi time. I'd just left the control room, having dealt with a pressure issue on the rig. Sweat still clung to my collar, my hands smudged with oil. I opened my phone to check the sea weather, not the weather of my life. But those words lit up the screen, a different kind of explosion I wasn't prepared for. I stood still in the cramped sleeping quarters, the ceiling fan spinning quietly, the sound of waves echoing from afar. No background music, no one yelling, "Cut." Just me. And a message powerful enough to collapse 2 decades of my life. Patricia, the woman who sobbed during our wedding because I never thought I'd meet someone like you, chose to end it all with exactly 23 words, no explanation, no call, no chance for me to ask a single question. I sat on the edge of the bed, my palms cold. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Brief, cold, as if I were just a balance sheet she'd closed to start a new chapter. And the thing is, I'd suspected it before. For the past 6 months, Patricia had texted less. Calls became just questions like, "When are you sending more money? I need to pay my niece's tuition loan. Have you checked the insurance yet?" No more sleep well, no more idle chatter about rain or the cat napping on the sofa. I hoped I was overthinking. I told myself, she's alone at home, probably bored. But I never imagined that while I was handling controls in the middle of the ocean, Patricia was quietly controlling my entire life on land. And that message was just the prelude. The storm was still waiting, where she didn't just want to leave me, but to take everything I'd built over nearly 20 years. I'm not a perfect man, but I've always been clear about one thing. When I choose someone to walk with, I go all in with all my sincerity and responsibility. I met Patricia while working night shifts for a gas extraction company in Louisiana. She was a nurse at a private clinic. We weren't rich, but we had simple dinners and genuine laughter. Patricia had bright eyes, a soft voice, and sometimes forgot small things. I found that endearing. When I got hired for an offshore engineering team in the Middle East, she was the first to say, "Go. I'll handle everything else," and I believed her. 18 years, I went, came back, came back. Each stint lasted 28 days, sometimes 35, rarely with 28 days, sometimes 35, rarely with holidays. I spent Lunar New Year on the rig, celebrated birthdays via video call, missed my nephew's graduation party due to a technical issue. But I didn't complain because each time I came home, Patricia would wrap her arms around me like I'd returned from another world. I put all my salary into a joint account, both our names on it. She handled the house, paid insurance, settled bills. I never checked. I once joked, if you ran off with all the money, I'd probably send a few more paychecks before noticing. And now, looking back, I was right. I just didn't expect it to be so real. The last few months, a few things made me uneasy. Each time I called, she dodged money talk. The life insurance policy I'd bought 10 years ago with her as the beneficiary suddenly had a stranger's name and a confirmation I saw by chance in a misdirected email. When I asked, she brushed it off. Probably a typo, don't worry. Back then, I wanted to believe, not because I was foolish, but because it's easier to forgive someone you love than to accept you've misplaced your trust. I didn't realize that behind her gentleness, she was quietly transferring money from our joint account to a separate one under her name and some relative, actually the young guy she was seeing. A man with wavy brown hair, a Latin tattoo on his neck, and one advantage over me, free time to take her to spas, pose for curated photos, and post cryptic captions. I wasn't jealous. I pitied myself, a man who'd toiled at sea, battling rough waves and toxic gases, only to be traded for Instagram couple shots I'd funded with matching outfits. Not just cheating, Patricia forged documents to change the beneficiary on my life insurance, replacing my name with next of kin. She submitted fake paperwork, signing my name, the hand that held hers during her first miscarriage, to steal what I'd meant for our family. When I realized the full extent, I no longer felt the pain of that first message. My heart turned cold, the way a man's does when he knows he no longer owes anyone patience. I used to think I was the type to need time to process pain, the type to stay silent for a long time before making a big decision. But no, some cuts are so deep you don't need to deliberate long, you just stand up and act. And as I sat alone in the rig's cabin, watching the blinking lights of the pressure control systems, I knew if I didn't act now, the only one left behind would be me. That night, I called Alan, my cousin, a CPA specializing in asset protection, whom I'd helped fund his first office. Alan didn't say much. After hearing the story, he asked one question. "Do you want to hit fast or hit quietly?" I replied, "Quietly, but thoroughly." Within 3 days, things started moving. Alan connected me with a lawyer, Michelle, who'd handled marital financial fraud cases. She was blunt. "If she forged your signature and submitted beneficiary changes, we have grounds for criminal charges. But to be safe, you need to stay calm and not tip her off." I followed her advice. From the rig, I transferred control of the bank accounts. I requested the bank investigate irregular transactions and immediately froze any funds not yet withdrawn. Accounts Patricia didn't know about, retirement savings, investments in my name alone, were secured with legal ownership Alan had adjusted within 48 hours. I also requested the life insurance company freeze beneficiary changes until an official investigation. Michelle filed a motion to pursue the forgery. And I gathered evidence. Bank statements showing transfers to a stranger, the email Patricia accidentally sent me with her early retirement plan in Mexico for her lover, including the line, "Don't worry, the old man's at sea, he doesn't know anything." I knew, and I didn't need to shout to prove it. 4 weeks later, I returned to the US, no heads up. No one to pick me up. I took a taxi to the lawyer's office, filed for divorce, and simultaneously submitted a lawsuit with full evidence of financial fraud and document forgery. Everything was prepared down to the last comma. Patricia received the summons on her birthday. I heard she thought it was flowers or a gift from me, so she live-streamed opening it. But instead of flowers, she held a thick file, the court's red seal glaring. And in it was everything she never thought I knew. She was stunned, called, texted, emailed, first panicked, then pleading. "You misunderstood. I only moved the money temporarily. Can we talk again?" But I didn't respond, not because I was cold, but because I was no longer the man who'd begged her to stay. Someone once told me, "Don't let anyone take your peace without paying a price." I didn't hurt Patricia by yelling or shaming her publicly. I just did what the law allowed and let her face the shadows she'd built with her betrayal. I still remember that morning, the first court date. No rain, no sun, just gray weather that made everything feel a bit colder. I wore an old suit, nothing fancy, no tie. I just wanted to show up as myself, not the betrayed husband, but the man finally choosing to protect the rest of his life. Patricia arrived 10 minutes late. When she walked into the courtroom, I barely recognized her. Pale face, eyes once confident and cunning, now anxious and unsteady. No longer the woman who always knew what she was doing and how to control others. She slid through the room, avoiding my gaze, and sat at the defendant's table. The court began by asking both sides to present the status of assets. My lawyer produced a file thick as a novel, marked with colored tabs and attached with every statement, receipt, and suspicious transaction. Each page presented made Patricia lower her head further. The transfers to a relative, the foreign property purchases under a stranger's name, the insurance changes, all laid bare brazenly. The judge said one short sentence. "We see clear evidence of signature forgery, false declarations, and intent to misappropriate assets. This case will be referred to the criminal division for further investigation." Patricia stayed silent. She didn't cry, didn't object. I guess she knew this time there was no way back. Her lawyer tried to negotiate. They proposed splitting assets amicably, that everything could be resolved. But I, for the first time in my life, said something I never thought I'd say in public in a courtroom. I don't need revenge. I just need fairness. And I've let her cross every line for too many years. Today, I take that line back so she knows it existed. The judge nodded, and the ruling came. I kept all legal assets, the house, retirement savings, and full control of the life insurance. Illegally transferred assets were ordered to be recovered. The forgery and fraud issues were sent to the prosecutor's office. Patricia left the court empty-handed and with a summons to the Financial Crimes Unit. I didn't look at her again until she came back wanting to talk privately one last time. We met in the hallway behind the courtroom. No one else was there, just two people who used to be married. She looked at me, eyes weary, voice hoarse. "Do you really hate me this much?" I stood still for a moment, then said, no raised voice, no blame. "You didn't break me. You just showed me the bottom, so I could step up from it." And I walked away, for the first time without looking back. Some wounds you carry for life, but some doors, once you dare to close, leave only darkness behind, unable to touch you anymore. I used to think that after a failed marriage, all that's left are shards. But then I realized if you're calm enough to pick up the pieces, not letting bitterness cloud your vision, you won't just have a life again, but a new one. I quit my offshore job after over 20 years, not because I was tired or running away, but because I knew it was time to set foot on land instead of floating mid-ocean to see my life not through video calls or international phone bills. I wanted to live where I could hear real wind, sip coffee in morning silence, and know what day it was without checking a calendar. I bought a small cabin in Montana, a place with mountains, pine forests, and winter snow blanketing the roof like Christmas cards I once sent Patricia. On my first day moving in, I brought 3 things: a suitcase of clothes, a wooden box of old photos, and the technical notebook I'd written during my sea years. The cabin's small, but I've never felt so much space. I started teaching new engineering grads, young guys still clumsy with wrenches, but wide-eyed when I told stories of seabed pressure and 72-hour shifts. I don't teach to make a living. I teach to pass on what books can't, like staying calm during a crisis, keeping promises where no one's watching, and most importantly, keeping yourself even when betrayal pushes you into the current. I slowed down, learned to cook with wood instead of gas. Learn to trust someone not by their words, but by how they live. I befriended an elderly couple next to my cabin. They invite me for grilled corn every weekend. I play with their old dog, Buck, who never leaves my side when I need someone to sit with me in silence. As for Patricia, I didn't dig too much, but news finds its way. I heard she sold her luxury car to pay debts. The Arizona condo she planned to buy fell through for a lack of financial proof. The young, fun friends who hyped her on social media no longer appear in her photos. Reputation gone, assets gone, but what she didn't expect: trust is what you never get back. No one wants to bet on someone who used another's kindness as a launch pad for their petty ambitions. I'm not happy she stumbled. I'm not sorry either. I just know one simple thing: I didn't lose anything. I just reclaimed myself. Someone once asked me, "After all this, do you still believe in love?" I smiled. Love isn't wrong. I just placed it in the wrong hands. Now every morning I wake to sunlight spilling through the wooden window. I no longer see the past as a string of mistakes. I see it as costly lessons I've paid in full. And finally, I'm no longer the man toiling on a rig, sending every dime home to someone who didn't value it. I'm Lucas, the man who stood up after being pushed to the bottom and chose to move forward with strength, freedom, and a heart more whole than ever. If you want, I'll close this story with the final part, a call to those struggling through betrayal to know that moving on isn't just stepping past, but standing tall. Have you ever witnessed a turnaround like this? If you were Lucas, would you forgive? Or act differently? Like the video if you've been hurt but stood up stronger. Comment your story below. It might help someone out there who's struggling. Subscribe to follow more real stories, real justice, real rebirth.